Residents of Gugulethu informal settlement in Springs, that's in Ekurhuleni, are still continuing with their search for gold at a kraal, which they allegedly hijacked following the discovery of gold particles by some residents in the area. Now, the area has been flooded with residents eager and desperate to strike gold since last week. They say unemployment and rising cost of living have forced them to resort to illegal mining and are not planning to stop anytime soon, as they have families to support. For more on this, let's now speak to mining analyst Peter Major. Mr. Major, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So we're seeing residents in Gugulethu informal settlement now openly searching for gold after they reportedly discovered gold particles. Just how common is it for ordinary community members to suddenly identify potentially viable gold deposits, if I can say?
Well, they say if you want to go find elephants, you go in well-known elephant country. If you want to find gold, you go in well-known gold country. And we all know South Africa probably has as much gold as the rest of the world put together. It certainly used to. Nearly 40% of the world's gold came from South Africa. And Springs is in the East Rand, and that's where the big mining companies started at the turn of 2 centuries ago, back in 1900, 1905, 1910, 20. That's where Anglo-American really got its roots in 1917 in Springs. And I think it was at the former Brackpan mine. So that area is known to have gold. And we've seen other precious metal runs before. A lot of them were fake when we used to hear about diamonds. I remember in KwaZulu-Natal about 5, 6 some years ago, and sometimes in the Klerksdorp area, in the Kimberley area, people reportedly started looking for diamonds because one individual said they found it. But with gold, that's the real thing. That is a well-known gold area, and the gold price has more than doubled in just the last 12 months. And compounding that is a lot of people out of work. So you're turning ordinary residents who are unemployed into zamazamas, literally, with this high gold price in an area known to house gold.
Yeah, we understand, of course, as we look at the story, that residents have allegedly now hijacked this land to search for gold. I mean, what does that then tell you about the state of abandoned or poorly secured mining areas in South Africa? I mean, you've mentioned a couple of provinces where at a time there was so much activity in those areas.
That's a really good question. And that is kind of the root of the problem here, is when we nationalized the mines, the mineral resources of South Africa in 2004, we didn't think through the practical consequences of that. Now, until that time, the state probably owned 20, 25% of all the land in the country. The other 75% was owned by private individuals. Now, private individuals, on the whole, obtain their land legally, and they put time and effort and money into that land, whether they're farming it or just having a house on it or raising cattle. It doesn't matter. They have a vested interest in it. Now, when you, by the stroke of a pen, change the ownership of that land and you say, yes, you still own the surface rights, but you don't own any of the minerals. Well, a lot of landowners thought, this land's not good for cattle. It's not good for farming. I've tried different ways of earning money from it, but it did have minerals. And I always thought someday I'm going to develop the minerals, or I'll do a deal with a mining company to develop the minerals. Well, now you don't own the minerals in that land. So literally at the stroke of the pen, the state became the custodian of all the minerals in the country. And so a lot of land that had some worth to the private landowner, it doesn't have much worth. So he's not going to hire police and security guards to keep that land safe. So what's really happened, the state can't manage all that land. They can't stop this mad land rush. And this is just like the land rush the Americas had back in the 1800s and 1820s, the 1840s. The government tried to hold the people back. They crossed the Mississippi. They took a lot of land from many, many Indian tribes that had held it for thousands of years, and the government couldn't stop the people. And that's what's happening now here. Land rush, mineral rush, and the government can't stop the illegals, definitely can't stop en masse legal people.
And that is worrying to hear. I mean, we know, of course, as these residents are saying, that they're not going to stop anytime soon, given the fact that, there's high unemployment in this country and they're desperate to feed their families. We know, that the country has battled illegal mining for years, as you're also saying. Why does it remain so difficult, though, to contain, especially when you look at the ripple effect it has? For instance, when you look at crime in the areas where there is illegal mining, water crisis that we are currently sitting in, infrastructure problems, because we know that in some cases ammunition is being used that damages the existing infrastructure in those areas.
Steve, there's lots of roots to this problem. It's not just that the mines, the mineral assets were nationalized in 2004. There was a lot of additional legislation that came on, and it made it uninvestable. The MPRDA really turned off investment on a multitude of ways, by requiring all mining companies, and at the time prospecting companies, to have 30% BEE, to require that they purchased all their needs from 70% BEE. So that and the nationalization of the mineral resources, that put off investors. And it put off mining companies from further exploration, further development. So even many of the existing mines that were marginal, they were less than marginal. They were uninvestable, unprofitable, loss-making entities. So a lot were sold cheap, a lot were abandoned. And these are mines, our gold mines employed 550,000 men at their peak. Now they employ 85,000 men. So we've created mass unemployment. We've created uninvestable mineral resources, uninvestable mines on the whole, except for some of the existing producers who had good margins. And we've introduced a royalty. So even if a company doesn't have profits, it has to pay a royalty. There's just a plethora of rules, policies, and regulations that were introduced here in 2004 and have been compounded and added to. So there's a lot of reasons for this problem now, and a lot of work's going to need to be done if we really want to change things.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't even touched the issue and the question of criminal syndicates also being involved, and in some cases we're being told these are very influential people within the country itself. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Peter, thank you so much for your analysis. That is, of course, mining expert and mining analyst Peter Major for us.